When a well-known journalist decided to publicly ridicule Melania Trump, she did not expect the former First Lady to respond and destroy her with one subtle gesture. What happened next changed everything. The Grand Regency Hotel shimmered under the dazzling lights of the annual charity gala, an event that attracted the country's elite from various industries. The ballroom was adorned with crystal chandeliers, their reflections dancing over tables set with the finest china and silverware. It was an evening meant to celebrate philanthropy, but as always, the unspoken reality was that such events were as much about influence and power as they were about generosity. Among the many esteemed guests, one figure stood out despite her efforts to remain inconspicuous: Melania Trump. She moved with a grace that was almost ethereal, her impeccably tailored gown flowing around her as she navigated the room. Though she had long learned the art of silent presence, the weight of 1,000 gazes followed her every step. Some whispered in admiration, others in curiosity, but she remained untouched by it all. This was not a night she had particularly looked forward to. She had received the invitation weeks ago, forwarded through an acquaintance who had assured her that the event would be strictly about supporting children's education. Melania had agreed, thinking it would be a rare evening free from the usual media scrutiny. But as soon as she arrived, she sensed that something was amiss. The atmosphere was charged with anticipation, an undercurrent of tension simmering beneath the polite conversations and delicate laughter. It didn't take long for her to understand why. The night's keynote speaker was Olivia Carter, a renowned journalist known for her sharp critiques and unapologetic takedowns of public figures. She had built a career on dissecting the lives of politicians and celebrities, exposing their flaws in carefully crafted monologues that were both admired and feared. Melania had crossed paths with her words before, though never in person. Tonight, that was about to change. As the evening progressed, the waitstaff moved seamlessly through the crowd, offering delicate hors d'oeuvres and glasses of sparkling champagne. Small talk filled the air, but all conversations began to dwindle as the moment everyone had been waiting for arrived: the speech. The host took the stage, his voice smooth as he welcomed the guests once more and introduced Olivia Carter. A polite round of applause followed, though it was evident that many in the audience were eager to see just how far she would go tonight. Dressed in a sleek black ensemble, Olivia exuded confidence as she stepped to the podium. She smiled at the crowd, her charm undeniable. She began her speech lightly, cracking jokes about the city's traffic and recalling a past gala mishap that had involved an unfortunate clash between a champagne tower and an overenthusiastic guest. The audience chuckled. The mood momentarily lifted. But soon the tone shifted. As we celebrate generosity tonight, Olivia began, her voice taking on a sharper edge, we must also recognize the irony of wealth and power shaping the very causes they often claim to support. A ripple of murmurs coursed through the audience. Some leaned in, intrigued, while others stiffened. Olivia was known for pushing boundaries, but the question was, how far would she go? She continued, her words weaving through themes of privilege and responsibility, speaking of those who had influence and how they wielded it. Then, after a well-timed pause, she said it. And of course, what conversation about influence would be complete without discussing the most fascinating example of them all, our very own modern-day enigma, Melania Trump. Silence spread across the room like a slow-moving wave. All eyes turned, almost instinctively, toward Melania. She remained still, her expression unreadable. Olivia smiled, as if she had been waiting for this very moment. Now let's be fair, she continued, feigning innocence. We can't deny the allure of mystery. A woman who stood beside one of the most controversial figures in modern politics, who spoke few words yet commanded attention. A first lady who redefined silence as strategy. There were scattered chuckles, but they were hesitant. Olivia pressed on. Many have wondered, was she a prisoner of circumstance or an architect of her own destiny? Is silence truly golden, or is it simply a shield? Melania took a slow sip of her champagne. The room was watching, waiting for a reaction, but none came. Not yet. Olivia tilted her head slightly, as if studying her subject. Some say it's grace, she mused. Others say it's complicity. So, Which is it? The moment stretched, the tension palpable. The audience seemed torn between their fascination with Olivia's boldness and their discomfort at the directness of her words. Melania placed her glass down with deliberate care. Her eyes met Olivia's, calm but piercing. Then she smiled. Melania's smile was the kind that unsettled even the most seasoned speakers. It was poised, calculated, and unreadable. It was not the smile of someone who had been caught off guard. It was the smile of someone who had been expecting this moment. Olivia Carter, standing at the podium, faltered for the briefest of seconds. She had spent years mastering the art of controlling the room, of steering public sentiment with her words. Yet, for the first time in a long time, she felt an unspoken resistance in the air, one she hadn't fully anticipated. The silence in the room stretched, filled only by the hushed murmurs of guests who shifted in their seats, waiting for what would happen next. Then, as if reclaiming her composure, Olivia leaned forward slightly, doubling down. "It's fascinating," she continued, her voice measured, "how a person can captivate the world without speaking much at all. But maybe that's the key. Maybe silence isn't just a shield, it's a weapon." More whispers spread throughout the audience. The temperature of the room had changed, shifting from mere curiosity to something more charged. Olivia was playing a dangerous game, and everyone knew it. Melania, still seated, reached for her champagne glass, lifting it slowly. She took a small sip, then set it down with deliberate ease. Then, finally, she spoke. "And yet," she said, her voice smooth, "you continue to talk." A ripple of reaction spread across the room. Olivia, for all her confidence, blinked. It was the smallest of tells, but in a game of optics and power, it was enough to signify a shift. Melania stood. Her movement was unhurried, each motion precise. She did not rush, nor did she seem flustered. If anything, she carried the same composed air she always had, only now there was something sharper beneath it. "Silence is not a weapon," she continued. "It is restraint, it is discipline, and sometimes it is kindness. But you misunderstand it, Miss Carter, because you rely on noise. You believe that to be heard is to be powerful. But true power," Melania paused, letting her words settle, "is knowing when to speak." The room had gone completely still. Even the usual sounds of cutlery against porcelain had ceased. Olivia squared her shoulders, determined not to lose control of the moment. "With all due respect," Olivia responded, regaining her footing, "the public deserves to know who they are looking up to. Transparency is part of responsibility." Melania gave the smallest tilt of her head. "And who are they looking up to?" "You." The murmurs in the audience grew louder now. This was no longer a monologue from Olivia. This had become something far more dangerous for her, a conversation she wasn't fully in control of. "I simply mean that figures in the public, I have a duty." "A duty to whom?" Melania interrupted, her voice still eerily calm. "To the people? Or to the narrative you create?" Olivia's lips pressed into a thin line. This was not unfolding in the way she had imagined. Melania took a slow step forward, every inch of her body language deliberate. "You speak of transparency, but tell me, Miss Carter, when was the last time you told the full truth? Not just a curated version of it, but the whole truth, unshaped by your agenda." Olivia opened her mouth, but Melania continued before she could answer. "You see, the difference between us is not that you speak and I do not. The difference is that you believe speaking the loudest makes you right. I believe in speaking only when necessary. And tonight, I think I've said enough." With that, Melania turned, gracefully exiting the stage, leaving Olivia standing alone at the podium, caught in the unrelenting silence that followed. The moment, recorded by dozens of phones in the audience, would spread like wildfire. And by morning, the conversation would no longer be about what Olivia had said, but about what Melania had left unsaid. The media storm following Melania Trump's calculated response at the gala was immediate and relentless. Within hours, social media erupted with contrasting reactions. Some hailed her as a master of poise and restraint, while others accused her of dodging accountability. Every major news outlet ran the story, dissecting her words, analyzing her demeanor, and attempting to unearth deeper meaning behind her carefully chosen statements. Olivia Carter, however, was not one to fade into the background. The journalist had built her career on being fearless, and despite the unexpected shift in public sentiment, she was not about to let herself be outmaneuvered. The following morning, she appeared on a primetime news show, her expression measured but unmistakably defiant. "Let's be clear," Olivia began, crossing one leg over the other as the camera zoomed in on her. "What happened last night was not about grace. It was not about dignity. It was about evasion. Melania Trump has spent years dodging questions, carefully crafting an image that thrives on mystery rather than substance. And when finally confronted, what did she do? She turned the conversation back on me. That is not transparency. That is a carefully rehearsed act." The anchor nodded, leaning forward. "But wouldn't you agree that her silence, or rather, her selective speech, has played a role in maintaining her influence? There are those who argue that she possesses a quiet power that is far more effective than openly engaging in conflict." Olivia let out a short laugh. A quiet power? Or a power that relies on never having to be held accountable? There is a difference between being strategic and being avoidant. And I think last night we saw the latter. The discussion continued, with Olivia holding her ground, though it was clear that the narrative was not entirely in her favor. Melania's decision to disengage had left more questions than answers, and the mystery surrounding her only deepened. Meanwhile, Melania remained characteristically silent. She neither addressed the media frenzy nor responded to Olivia's statements. Instead, she continued with her usual routines, appearing at scheduled events, smiling for the cameras, and maintaining the composure she had become known for. But behind closed doors, discussions were happening. "You should respond," an advisor told her that afternoon, pacing in her office. "Olivia is gaining traction again. The public wants to hear more from you." Melania, seated near the window, watched the city skyline with an unreadable expression. "The public wants a spectacle. I do not give them what they want. I give them what they do not expect." Her advisor hesitated. "And what do they not expect?" She turned, a knowing smile playing on her lips. "To be ignored." And that was exactly what she did. As Olivia doubled down, making rounds on talk shows and publishing opinion pieces about the need for accountability, Melania refused to take the bait. She neither denied nor confirmed anything, choosing instead to let the storm swirl around her, untouched. Days passed, then a week. Olivia's story began to lose traction. Without new material to feed the media cycle, the conversation started shifting elsewhere. Celebrities got involved in new controversies, political debates took center stage, and what had once been a fiery confrontation started to cool. Then, just when the world was beginning to forget, Melania made her move. It wasn't a press conference. It wasn't an interview. It wasn't even a speech. It was a single post. A photograph, taken at an event supporting underprivileged children, where she stood beside a young girl holding a book. The caption was simple: "Words have power, but actions reveal truth." That was it. No further explanation. No direct acknowledgement of Olivia or the debate that had surrounded them. Yet, the message was clear. The post went viral within hours, sparking a fresh wave of discussion. Supporters praised her elegance, calling it the ultimate response to the controversy. Critics, on the other hand, claimed it was another clever way of avoiding real questions. But no matter which side people fell on, one fact remained indisputable. Melania had, once again, controlled the narrative without ever truly engaging in it. Olivia, watching the reaction unfold, knew she had lost this round. She had played the game loudly. Melania had played it in silence. And sometimes, silence was the loudest sound of all. The aftermath of Melania Trump's silent but deliberate move sent ripples across the media landscape. The photograph of her with the young girl had done what no press conference or interview could. It had shifted the conversation. For Olivia Carter, the journalist who had challenged Melania at the gala, the frustration was mounting. She had played her cards loudly, pressing the issue of accountability, of transparency, and yet Melania had managed to win without saying anything more than a simple caption. The sheer audacity of it gnawed at Olivia, making her wonder if she had underestimated her opponent. As the days passed, Olivia found herself at a crossroads. Should she continue pushing the narrative or let it go? Some of her colleagues had already moved on to other stories, sensing that the public's attention was waning. The more Melania refused to engage, the more futile the effort seemed. And yet, Olivia wasn't ready to let it go. She decided to take a different approach. Instead of launching another direct critique, Olivia penned an op-ed for a major publication titled, "The Power of Silence, a Lesson from Melania Trump." The article was unexpected. Instead of attacking Melania, Olivia analyzed her strategy, questioning whether silence in the face of scrutiny was an act of wisdom or merely a tactic of evasion. She noted how throughout history, some of the most powerful figures had wielded silence as a weapon, allowing their detractors to tire themselves out while they remained above the fray. In a world where every word is scrutinized, perhaps Melania Trump has mastered the rarest art of all, saying nothing and letting the world speak for her. The response to Olivia's article was swift and divided. Some praised her for acknowledging Melania's intelligence, while others accused her of capitulating. Social media, as always, was ablaze with debates. Meanwhile, Melania remained as she always had, untouched, moving through her public appearances with grace, never directly addressing the controversy that had consumed the media. However, those closest to her knew that she had been watching. One evening, as she sat in a quiet corner of her New York residence, a longtime confidant spoke up. "She's adapting," they said, referring to Olivia. "She's trying a new angle." Melania took a sip of her tea, her expression serene. "She's learning." Her confidant raised an eyebrow. "You almost sound like you admire her." Melania smiled slightly, setting her cup down. "She is persistent. That is a quality I respect." The following day, Melania's team announced that she would be attending a highly anticipated international summit on global women's empowerment. It was a subtle but calculated move. If Olivia Carter wanted to talk about accountability, Melania would redirect the conversation to something greater. When she arrived at the event, the press was waiting. Olivia Carter was among them, standing with a microphone in hand, waiting for the perfect moment. As Melania made her way down the aisle, Olivia called out, "Mrs. Trump, do you believe silence is the best response to controversy?" For a brief moment, Melania paused. The cameras flashed, the world holding its breath. Then, with her signature grace, she turned slightly toward Olivia and spoke in a voice that was both soft and firm. "Silence is not absence. It is understanding when words are no longer needed." Then, without another glance, she continued forward, leaving Olivia standing there, microphone still in hand, stunned once more. The moment went viral instantly, reigniting the debate all over again. But this time, the narrative had changed. Melania was no longer avoiding the conversation. She was controlling it. As Olivia watched the headlines unfold, she couldn't help but exhale in a mix of frustration and reluctant admiration. "She won again, didn't she?" a colleague muttered beside her. Olivia nodded. "Yes, but this time I think I finally understand how she does it." The days following Melania Trump's calculated response at the international summit saw the media's fascination with her reach a new peak. Pundits and commentators dissected her words, debating their meaning, their intent, and their long-term impact. For some, she had solidified herself as a master of controlled messaging, an individual who understood the value of restraint in a world driven by endless chatter. For others, she remained an enigma, an unwilling participant in the public discourse, someone who had mastered the art of engagement without participation. Meanwhile, Olivia Carter found herself at a crossroads. After months of pressing Melania to break her silence, she had finally received a direct response, just not in the way she had anticipated. That single sentence, spoken with quiet authority, had left Olivia with more questions than answers. It was as if Melania had carefully handed her a puzzle with just enough pieces missing to keep her chasing the story. Determined to regain control of the narrative, Olivia arranged for an in-depth documentary special, one that would explore the history of public figures using silence as a strategy. Titled "The Power of Quiet, When Silence Speaks Louder Than Words," the documentary aimed to contextualize Melania's approach within a broader discussion of influence, power, and the media's role in shaping public perception. As production for the special got underway, Olivia made one final attempt to secure an interview with Melania. A formal request was sent through official channels, accompanied by a personal letter. Mrs. Trump, over the past months, our exchanges have sparked an important conversation, one that extends beyond us. I believe the public deserves a deeper understanding of your perspective. This is not about politics or controversy, but about insight. If you are willing, I would be honored to have a discussion that allows your voice to be heard on your own terms. Respectfully, Olivia Carter. Days passed. Olivia waited. The network executives were eager for an answer, knowing that an exclusive interview with Melania would elevate the project beyond expectations. But no response came. Then, just as Olivia was beginning to assume that Melania had ignored the request entirely, a letter arrived at her office. It was handwritten, the script elegant and deliberate. Ms. Carter, silence is not absence, nor is it avoidance. It is a choice. The conversation you seek does not require my presence. It exists already in the minds of those who are willing to listen. Best, Melania Trump. Olivia read the letter multiple times, each pass revealing new layers of meaning. Melania had declined the interview, but in doing so, she had once again dictated the terms of the narrative. There would be no back and forth, no debate, no verbal sparring. Instead, she had left Olivia with a final statement, one that ensured she remained the one in control. The documentary aired 2 weeks later. It was a critical success, sparking widespread discussions about the role of public figures in shaping their own stories. Though Melania never appeared on screen, her influence was deeply felt throughout the project. As Olivia watched the final broadcast, she found herself smiling, not out of victory or defeat, but out of admiration. In all her years as a journalist, she had never encountered someone who could wield silence with such precision. Melania Trump had not just won the game. She had rewritten the rules,